or research. In fact, now we have just started developing such a very user-friendly, very flexible model setting and very much variables output. Regional downscaling modeling system that can be running on just personal computer.
Thank you very much. That's a, from the modeler's perspective, how, one of the inputs into climate knowledge comes from modeling. Let us remember that the poorest of the fishermen, poorest of the farmer has a model in his or her mind. We all have models. What the scientists try to do is to objectify it, try to pull it out and huge amount of data information, see if we can come to make it predictive. Can we predict something out of that which have generic significance? And that research has, I think, moved quite a bit and moved further. Application of that research into the need of the people in governance, in decision making, that is where still, I think, we are in the beginning of the earlier stages. There are two issues here that has come up. One, I must mention that adaptation impacts, as I said earlier, is going to be non-linear and accelerating. So the total amount, if we just go linear progression of mitigation, adaptation will not follow linear progression, it will shoot up. Higher the amount of mitigation, greater will be the adaptation requirement. Now, this implies that the action that is required is much more in the field or as much in the field of mitigation. Of course, we have to do a huge amount of adaptation. So mitigation is a must, adaptation must be done too. And that must not be forgotten. We are not going to solve the problem of climate change with adaptation. I'll just give you an illustrative example. I don't know whether there is anybody from Maldives here. I had one of the senior most decision maker, policy maker in Maldives, this discussion that Maldives is trying to buy some land in Australia or some other country and can move because it's a moderately wealthy country with some resources. Yes, they can buy this piece of land. And the minister told me, yes, I can move, but my parents and grandparents' grave is in Maldives. And if I do not go to their grave once a week, I am half the person I am. Now that cannot be translated easily. So there are deep intrinsic valuation of life that we do, which is just not so. Retreat is of course the last option. But retreat, in my opinion, there is a whole analytical debate going on, is not an option. When either the ecosystem has collapsed, human system has retreated, institutions cannot function anymore with the climate stimulus and climate-related development stimulus, then I think that is that end of adaptation as we knew it. So adaptation is not going to be our solution to problem. It is from band-aid to bandage to a bit better. But the good health will come from mitigation, and I think that is a point that we should not lose in this debate here. The other part is science. We have been working on science for about science policy interface in a developing country system, and previously 30 years of my life has been in Western scientific academic system. The science policy interface in developing countries doesn't go that well as it should, so we call it science policy people interface. The people communities have to be brought into that equation, and that makes it even more complex, but has to be done because that's how we make policies work better. This vertical integration, as we go along, there will be ups and downs in integration. And question to all of you, if you have nuggets of ideas, how do we move forward? Or if you have questions, or you have responses to any of my fellow panelists, Now we'll be going to the audience to have about half an hour, then last 7 minutes, maybe a bit before half an hour. Last, we'll need about 10 minutes if we give 1.5 minutes to each of my colleagues on this side, and then 3 minutes or 2 minutes for myself for wrapping up. If that's allowed, then we'll have about 25 minutes for the audience to give different perspective. What I would request you, if you don't mind, those who want to make contribution, please come to the microphone. Just say your name and affiliation, no more than that, and then either a question or a comment. And please be brief. You know, brevity is the essence for, and highly democratic. Thank you. Please. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Supakon from Southeast Asia Start Regional Centers. There's a few things that I think I'd like to add on to this, some comments and some for further, for the sake of further discussions. For the comments, I think, actually I'm very glad to hear that the climate change adaptation is nothing more than sustainable development in a proper ways, because over the years, climate change in these regions has been treated as an environmental issues alone for long times. And we've been preaching is that it's not environmental issues, but it's about development. It's about the conditions that restrain development plannings. And I think it's still a message that has to be said over and over again over the years. However, there always this comment pop up from time to time that the poorest is always the most vulnerable, of which I'm not quite fully agree with that. There are certain circumstances that the poorest may not be the most vulnerable, whereby we have to look at how they're exposed and sensitive to the impact of climates. And in case of single events that may affect their livelihood, we have to see how the recovery times that set them back to the stage whereby they've been earlier. And according to this theme, the vertical integrations, the multiple level governance, design, and policies, I'd like to add a little bit more to the theme for further discussion as well. It's not about science policy, but also about strategies, because strategy can be implemented out of the policy planning community and circle, and it's very much the foundations of climate change adaptations at the ground levels. And we have multiple levels, and these multiple levels have different contexts, agendas, and concern, especially the time span in their mind about what and how to do to cope with the risks that might be coming in the futures. So if we look at the regional, when we look at the issue of the transboundaries, the national interests, if we look at the nationals, we may look at the long-term strategy plannings and focus more on the sector rather than the areas. But at the subnational levels, we have the issue of area-based, whereby a number of sectors live in the same area but share the same resources. The way they respond will have impact on the others, and how should they cope with the coming change. But if we see these layers and how the policies on climate change is being formed, then we can find a way that we link science into
I think the
that.
issue is of integration there, centrally. Yes. Is there any other hand on this side? Then, yeah, please go to the microphone. Yes, please. What I would request those who are going to speak, why don't you go up to the microphone, use one of those. I'm sure this is working as well. Yep.
Good afternoon to all. Good afternoon to all of you, sir. I am Randeep Singh Saini from an NGO, Environment Matters in India. I just want to invite your attention to a missing link, whereby the natural disasters which we are talking about, they will also trigger have a trigger on many man-made disasters. We are today having a large number of hazardous waste sites, a large number of wastewater treatment plants. These kind of infrastructures, whenever any earthquake comes or any volcano cyclones come, sure, they also get damaged, and they will increase the impact on the communities. This pollution-related infrastructure also needs to be integrated into. Thank you very much.
Climate change, to an extent, is a pollution problem, pollution of the atmosphere by greenhouse gases.
I'm Ramani from IINRG, India. I have 2 points. One is having some kind of functional mechanism for adaptation. When we look at India, we have a fairly good mechanism, for health, whether it is prophylactic or disaster management. It works well. But when it comes to disaster, when we had tsunami, we found that we were really not prepared at all. Similarly, is it possible to have some kind of program for climate change which will have a vertical integration so that it becomes responsive to such thing, how we are going to adapt, or even disaster, if you have to manage. Can we have that kind of program, which we don't have? And second point is, today we are discussing a vertical integration, and we have a parallel integration going on parallelly. Is it high time to think about multidimensional, because reductionist approach is good, no doubt. But we are discussing parallel and vertical integration separately. I think we should be sitting together and thinking in terms of multidimensional linking. Thank you.
Good question, but a very challenging one. Let's have the lady over there, then yourself, sir. Oh, you have somebody, please. Why don't you come to the microphone there? You go
this
ahead.
This one is okay?
You go ahead, yes.
Yeah.
Somebody come to that microphone at the
Just
back.
observation and question. As we speak now, Thailand, Muan Pong Gentlepas from Stockholm Environment Institute. I want to share and also questions one thing about the interface between science, policy, and governance. As we speak, Thailand is flooded now, 18 or 20 provinces. It is about nearly 1/3 of Thailand provinces. And the situation, it is so severe that in many places it's 2 meters high, the water to come out. Cut that point short, it's quite big. On the one hand, in terms of modeling or in terms of prediction, we are not so clever with it, things are changing. There have been predictions that say generally there will be more rainy day, and the rainy day are very close to each other. That's what we know. So, but this is among the experts, no? But when we debate about this, so you imagine Korat, which is outside Bangkok, is a very high plateau. Who would imagine it will be flooded nearly all the districts? The interpretation of this is that when there are more rainy days, like 10 or 15 rainy days, it might flood. And this province never been flooded before. Coming back to policy interfaces, one is knowledge, is out there in Bangkok. Another is policy in terms of different ministry that is planning. Another is what Kun Supakorn say, area-based, which is a province. The governor now are doing their planning as usual. So when we are talking in Bangkok, there is about sectoral and everything, but in terms of space, area-based, the province are not equipped. Right now, who are responding is a military who are on a